There we go, unmute. Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today and welcome to the tour of Artist Room 1, part of the Other Art Fair's first ever virtual edition. My name is Nicole Garton and I'm the fair director for the Los Angeles and Dallas editions. On this tour, I'll be showing you around Artist Room 1 and briefly chatting with 3 artists exhibiting in this room. Is everyone ready? It's going to be fun. Before we begin, I'll start by pointing out a few features to better help you navigate the 3-dimensional experience and to help you better forge personal connections with the artists that strike your fancy. As always, as we always advise, when you find something you love, that's what we say is the thing that matters when it comes to art. Just buy what you love. Okay. First, I want to point out on the screen this section here in the top hamburger. You can always track any favorites that you mark along the way by clicking on bookmarks. If you want to sit back and let the machine do a bit of work for you, click on this start tour option for something akin to cruise control. Okay, let's get started in room 1. So first we will chat with Vicky Berenguet. You can quickly jump to any artist by clicking on the second hamburger here and just tapping on their name. This will take us directly to Vicky's stand. So once you've arrived at an artist's booth, you can watch a video. You can sign their guest book because who doesn't love fan mail, or you can request a one-on-one video chat with any artist. All right, let's bring Vicky on. Vicky, do you wanna join?
Here I am.
Hi, Vicky. So
Good
nice
evening.
To see you. Oh my goodness. So are you joining us from New York? Is that where you are today?
Yes, from East Harlem, in my studio I am.
In East Harlem, wow, okay.
Yes.
So I know you've been hard at work the past year, so I'm just gonna give everyone a look at your beautiful booth here. And why don't you start by telling us a bit about your work and kind of your journey as an artist?
Well, since a very young age, I liked drawing creative projects, and I was always busy with my hands and creating something. And when I moved to Boston with my husband, he was studying at Berkeley music, and then I started studying art over there. And when we moved to New York, I started going to the Art Students League, and since then I started full time.
Wow.
Yeah, I was doing other jobs, but slowly the art started taking over, and until I was a full-time artist.
Fantastic. And you've done so many fairs with us now, so it's cool to see how your work has evolved and also how some of your projects have expanded over the years. So I know this past year, obviously you had trouble getting to your studio, and so you had to kind of, modify your normal process. And I think you did a special project that kind of was in response to COVID. So do you want to tell us a bit about your Portal series? Oh, I think you're on mute again. Do you want to unmute yourself? There you go.
How did
you're back?
Okay. So during the pandemic, I moved our bedroom to the living room, and I set up a home studio in my room.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's what I did first. And it was very hard to start working at that point. At that moment, it was a very strange moment, but suddenly I started creating. And then I was invited to do an amazing residency in Chelsea. And for the final project, over there at Highline 9, I did these big paintings, well, all of them except the diptych. This one is called Yards of Love, and it's all the roles that I always paint, and it's a project that I started a long time ago. But the other paintings that I am showing here are part of Portal. Portal was the final project from the residency, and they are the size of a standard door. They are 36 by 80 inches, and the idea was to open doors inside of the gallery, to invite people to connect through art at a human level when so many doors were closed at the moment. So it was all doors opening in the gallery, and that was the idea.
Wow, that is so fantastic. And so I want to go back to a bit about this piece over here, the Yards of Love. I know that this is something that you've been doing a lot. And do you want to tell us a bit about what Yards of Love means and sort of how the buyer kind of has a role in that process?
Sure. It all started in my studio once I had a roll of canvas, and I just continued painting, and I said, what am I going to do now with this huge painting? And I thought about doing some project for charity where I would invite different collectors to choose parts of the canvas, and we could cut it wherever they were deciding, which is not what I do with my regular paintings, but with these ones, yes. They are done specially for cutting and for being for collaborating with collectors. So the collector can choose the composition, and they are part of the creative process as well. And at the same time, we donate a percentage to charities sometimes when I work with organizations, or so that's the idea. Per yard of art that I sell, I am donating something.
Oh, so fantastic. So in other words, you've painted this unending scroll of canvas, and then the collector can decide, I want this section, or I want these 2 yards, or
yes.
You know, you kind of decide the orientation and where it gets cut. That's so neat.
Exactly. I can show you quickly because I have this one here in the floor. Let's see if we don't get disconnected or something, but can you see?
Oh yeah, we can kind of see behind you.
So you see the rolls there, and you see that's the paint. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So yeah, people can really see a sense of scale.
Yeah.
And
here is this one is another part of the Yards of Love. That is the other painting that you have there in the booth.
Is that this one?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so tell us a bit about your technique. And I know obviously your husband is also a musician, but how does music play into your work? Because I think that's one of your big themes, is the movement, but then also what it evokes. So I'll let you tell us about it. Oh, you might have frozen a bit. Let's see if she comes back. Oh, there you are.
Yes.
Can you hear us?
Am I there?
Yeah, you're back.
You can hear me? Okay. So yes, music is a big inspiration for me because, as I said, we moved to Boston together with Gustavo, who is a musician, and he was studying music. So I was always painting next to him. As soon as we moved together, I was painting and he was playing the whole time. So I didn't realize until later that I was very much inspired, and my painting had the rhythm and the movement of music. So that's part of it. And also a big part of my painting is it's based on emotions and what goes on around us in the world. So it's abstract, but it's a portrait of what is going on in the world.
And so
and then the technique you said.
Oh yeah, how do you start? Do you start with
Nicole.
one color, or do you kind of have plans out, or does it evolve as you go on?
Usually it evolves as it goes on, unless it's a commission based on a painting of another painting of mine. Then I am always waiting for it to come instead of me having really a plan. The plan is to paint that moment, and what I say about my painting is that I capture moments. You know, it's that moment in time, and usually that's important also to mention now that I also sometimes do live painting with music. So those pieces are from the start of a concert until the end, and that's it. I never touch again that piece. So
wow.
The result of the concert is what it is in the canvas.
And I've noticed these works that you're showing here, there tends to be a lot of yellows and warmer red tones, which seems like it's a progression. Some of your previous works that I've seen had a lot of blues and more black to them. So what's been the influence in the color?
Well, for the portal exhibition, if I can show you a little bit, here I have the three of them. I think those are the ones that we are seeing there. So the result of the, let me see. Tell me if I get disconnected, okay?
All good.
So I show you here because I have the others, some of the other paintings. So it's all a progression of color, and it's a different setting of what I did before. It goes like a rainbow, the whole spectrum.
Love it. Very cool. Okay. And what else should people know about your work? If they're interested in getting in touch, obviously they can ask to do a video chat with you and sign your guest book.
Yes.
Any final?
Exactly. Final thought? I hope we can hug all again soon.
Oh yes, we can't wait to have our live events and
live event.
Everyone.
But people can write to me on the chat. We can have a video chat with anybody that would like to see details of the paintings. And also, on Instagram, they can see, or they can contact me too.
Okay. And for anyone who's new to the fair, you can click on any of these works. It will take up the details that you can click on here. And you can read more about the work. And then if you click buy this, it'll take you straight through to Saatchi art, where you can zoom in, see it on a room, and then make any purchases. So, okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Vicky. This is really
welcome. Thank you.
Beautiful work. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Let's bring on Chantal while I skip over to your stand really quick. Okay. Hi, Chantal. Oh, I think you're still on mute. You want to unmute yourself? There we go. Welcome. Good to see you. Hi. Your background actually matches your work in a.
I'm glad you come on.
I don't know if that was beautiful. So you're joining us from the opposite coast. You're in Los Angeles, is that right?
Right. Yes, I am in Los Angeles.
So will you start by telling us kind of just like how you got started in art and sort of your journey as an artist?
Yeah, so I think like many other artists, there's some drive to do it when we're younger, with experimenting. And so I've kind of fallen that category with experimenting with different materials and trying to make things out of, random objects pretty much. And then, as life goes on and you sort of mature in your art making, you care more about, or at least for me, about, why I'm doing these things, and sort of really honing in on process and purpose. And so I feel like my work is mostly speaking to that. The process, especially with these paintings in particular, have been developed over the last, I would say, 14 years or so. And so, yeah, it was a lot of experimenting along the way. This is a result of a lot of layering and creating chemical reactions. So with all of them, they kind of go through a similar process. All of these paintings are on wood. I also work on Portuguese cork as an ode to my heritage on my maternal side. I've also worked on military parachutes, and also right now I'm working on a project where I'm using previously deployed airbags. So I care a lot about sourcing materials. I like materials with a story, just to sort of make connections with the objects themselves that I'm working with, but also in thinking about the people that they're connected to, or oftentimes the environment. But with this work in particular, with a lot of my abstract paintings, I think about this feeling of sort of like being small, in like a healthy sense. So, like picture yourself at the beach and looking up at the stars at night, and sort of just that like overwhelming feeling of imagining yourself, however many miles away, and you're just like, you're part of this big ecosystem, but you're also like a really like small part of that. And I think it's really humbling and beautiful to think about. And so this is sort of, a way to explore that feeling. I like to use a lot of earth tones, or like naturally occurring colors for the most part. Although I would say as of the last maybe 2.5 years or so, I have been including a gold paint. I think it adds a really beautiful element depending on the kind of light that is in someone's room. So in a sense, you kind of get a painting that transforms throughout the day, which I think is really exciting, especially with abstract work. I feel like there's just a lot of room for a painting to grow with you. So depending on where you're at in your life, what it might mean to you when you first get it can evolve, and I think that's really beautiful and exciting too.
Very cool. I love that. Yeah, I think the sense of the sublime and the awesomeness really comes through in your work, whether it's kind of oceany or the night sky. I wondered too, you were mentioning sort of the materials that you incorporate into your work. How does the use of the deployed airbags or the parachutes, how does that tie back to, is that because it's sort of like a heightened moment of sort of
Yeah,
adrenaline?
those are a little bit, well, the parachutes in particular are a little heavier in theme. So they're 2 parachutes, and they contain 7,519 footprints, which is the amount of active duty and veterans that have died by suicide.
Oh, wow.
So that took a really long time to make. It was physically really demanding to make. And whomever is interested in that particular project can, check it out on my website. But the previously deployed airbags are still in the same theme of using material as part of like the story. And so where the with the parachutes, like those were gifted to me, and I decided to sort of make that stance about you know, what is happening. And then with the airbags, I found it interesting. I was thinking about sentimentality actually, and how a lot of people, you know, they collect art or like trinkets or, you know, things when they travel, or, you know, children's artwork, you know, and you kind of keep, you know, these things that you're really tied to. And I was thinking like, oh, airbags are really interesting because it's a material that most don't really see, you know, thank goodness. But when you do, it's often an object that saves your life. And it's interesting that it's something that we don't actually keep. And so I was thinking about what would happen to sort of take care of that material instead of discard it. And normally with everything that I do, I'm really mindful of sort of like the lineage of materials and objects. And with these airbags in particular, it was an experiment for me to navigate what it means to actually not know the person that's tied to each individual airbag. And so that was a really interesting thing. You still feel almost a sense of responsibility in a really weird way. You're developing this relationship with these objects, and I decided to paint on them in a way that still honored the material and not really process them or overwork them in a way that you can't really figure out what they are. I mean, I think most people may not necessarily know what they are because we don't have exposure to them like that. But you can still see that it's like this textile object.
Fascinating. I'll have to dig into that one more.
Yeah.
For these works that you've chosen for your booth, I mean, it looks to me, just in the sort of color choices and the harmonies of the pinks and the blues, like they're very joyful.
Yeah.
It's definitely like a tonally uplifting vibe, which I think is really beautiful. Do you want to speak a bit more about sort of your process? Do you start, you know, what does it look like when you're starting, and then how are you building up? Because I'll try and get in here close so that people can see a bit of the texture. These are really,
yeah, that's always the tricky part with photographing them. And, you know, unless you get to see them up close, and some of them, I think if you're able to get closer, you can sort of see the texture with them.
I'm going to show everyone a little trick here. If I can open it on Saatchi Art. Are you able to see the Saatchi Art screen? Is it loading for you?
I can see it.
Yeah, okay.
For guests and beyond.
You can see it. I'm thinking it's like, this
oh, there we go. Yeah, that's great.
The juicy layers and textures. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
this might be one of the this might be actually one of the few times I used black and a really dark blue. But I was thinking about like contrast for this particular piece. I really wanted to experience that and sort of go out on a limb a little bit with you know, the use of color, because normally I do like to stick within a very particular color palette that's tied to, you know, being a lot of times at the sea. I'm very inspired by the water and its symbolism. I think it contains like I just feel like it symbolizes like so much fear and so much love, like all in one place. And I am always interested in sort of exploring what that means to confront fear or embrace love. No, thanks for the question, Tina. So this is actually a layering up of acrylic paint. And so the paint that I use is a mix of paint that I've like mixed myself, or I actually let it expire, which is part of my process. So I let air to it a lot of times and let it separate. And so then I'm able to layer those different stages of paint onto the wood, and it creates a chemical reaction onto the wood.
Well, that's fascinating. Gosh, this is so beautiful. Let's I'm going to navigate us back to the stand here. Okay, we're just coming up.
You're welcome.
Mark, do you have any final thoughts before we move on to David? Anything else you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And, I'm excited to be able to connect with everybody. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm pretty findable on Saatchi and email, or you can send me a message on Instagram. And, I'd love to answer any additional questions. So thank you.
Great. Okay, thanks, Chantal. Okay, and last but not least, let's chat with David. He's just right across the way here. If you're following along, you can find each other right across. Okay, welcome, David. Hi, how are you? Gosh.
I'm great. Hi, Nicole. I'm great.
I'm good. So we're finishing out in the central time zone. You're in Dallas?
Right between Nicole and Chantal. Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
yes.
so exciting. So, gosh, I want everyone to see all of your works at a distance, but then we can kind of zoom in on these. But while we're kind of resting here, do you want to tell people a bit about your process, kind of how you became an artist and how it's evolved and your artistic journey?
Absolutely. I'd love to. My journey began, I think, in third grade with Mrs. Spencer when I got in trouble for drawing a character of her instead of focusing on my lessons. So I've drawn and loved art since I was tiny. I had a wonderful grandfather who grew up on the streets of Chicago, who was a painter. He actually worked backstage in vaudeville theater. And they lived in LA, out in your territory. And when my grandma and grandpa would come to Dallas, we would talk about painting and art. He was so fascinating. I loved this man. And he really was the first person to put a brush in my hand. So we painted a little bit. He showed me oil paints, which is what he used. And so that set me off on the journey. I ended up, when I was young, which I'm many years ago, decades ago, moving to an old warehouse downtown Dallas, and was going to be, an artist, live the artist lifestyle. And I've painted since then. I've had a little stint of an illustrator for a dozen years in between, but I never stopped painting, and I'm doing it full time now, which is absolutely a joy and a blessing. So I'm having the time of my life. So I'm excited to be here in this cool new virtual show.
Awesome. Well, we're so excited to have you. Dallas is one of our newest fairs, so you quickly made the jump from local show to virtual show.
Yeah, I love the other art fair was fantastic. I'm so excited, hoping, fingers crossed, right?
I know, yeah.
In May this year. So I look forward to seeing you in the game again.
Yeah, definitely. So tell us about this piece. I don't know if this is new to you, but it's new to me. I hadn't seen this one of yours before. Is this a more recent piece?
Right. Well, the three large paintings on the center main wall, including this one, are all relatively new pieces. As a matter of fact, I did them all at the same time, sort of, or they overlap to some degree. This was the last of the three that I worked on, and really what I did was kind of evolved imagery from one into the next, things I like. This particular painting, Harum Scarum, was a totally finished landscape painting. It was a bit graphic, but it was really played out as a readable landscape painting. And I lived with it as I went back and forth from the other canvases. And as often happens, when I find myself getting a little tight, a big brush and about 2 hours worth of work obliterated most of the canvas, leaving only what you see left. And then I added some of the white elements to it. So this is not uncommon for me to go to a more abstracted landscape painting, but I rather had fun with it and liked it. So I thought I'd pop it into the show this time. But it definitely relates to the other two paintings.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna go back. I love checking out the texture. This is so fantastic.
Yeah, there's very defined texture underneath there that is somewhat in a symmetrical pattern built up from the layers of the original landscape. So yeah, it's got a lot of paint, a lot of layers, and a lot of texture, a lot of color.
I love, yeah, it's like a color lover's dream because you've got so many complementary. You've got the reds and the greens and the lavenders and the yellows, and it's just fantastic. So tell us, how do these all relate together? I'm starting to see some circle motifs reappearing, but you point out how you see them sort of interacting.
Right. Well, the process for me in painting, funny enough, I counted earlier today, I've got literally 60 paintings. I think Vicky was talking how she converted a bedroom. And since I moved out of the studio downtown, like so many of us have this year, I work on a lot of paintings at once. And I mean, a lot. And I love that because it gives me time to step away from the paintings and live with them, make changes. And it's not uncommon to pull it out like I did in the first painting and really kind of go after it. But the center painting of the horses, yes, was really started with an image that I absolutely loved, that I thought was very powerful, but yet sort of vulnerable at the same time. And you might remember some of my other pieces. This is about the 4th time that I've used this image, in the last.
I love it. Yeah.
It was really, the intent was really, for lack of a better description, just to do a bright and juicy pop art painting. So I put in the images of the horse, and then I went back and forth with patterns in the background, and ended up with this. And then I moved to the painting on the right, which is Memorum, which you see carries over, again, some of the circle patterns and some of the mountain landscape that ended up in the first painting we looked at on the left. So they do interrelate. This painting was very unique for me because it, unlike most of my work, it sort of evolved a very personal narrative through the process. Coincidentally, I don't know, maybe it was the images that kind of evoke some things that have happened over the past year. So this is a very personal painting to me. The thing I love about it is the gold cabin and trees have a substantial amount of texture raised off the canvas. I don't think you can really see it in this.
Let's go to Saatchi art and see if we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always want to get in super close, and this is the next best thing. Let's see. You sat down here by the. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's multiple layers built up of the graphic image. So yeah, reminds me a lot of some great memories with my girls in the mountains. But there's a lot to that painting, and again, that's not typically for me to start off with a narrative. So it just kind of evolved. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, and of course, I'm very attracted to neon paint these days, and the brighter the better.
Yeah, I think everyone, if you can't be stimulated by the world outdoors, I think color is a nice substitute to eyes who get bored with seeing, the insides of floor walls.
Absolutely.
Man.
Absolutely. Yeah, so they're all very related. Yes, ma'am.
So tell us, you mentioned you kind of draw on personal narratives occasionally and pop art, but you also have a lot of works that kind of talk about art historical references and other sort of references to other things, because you have so many layers that interweave. And I just wonder, do you plan them out? Do you sketch first, or how do these compositions kind of come together?
Right. Well, it was so interesting to listen to Chantal and Vicky talk about their art. I love it. The narratives and the content and the intention that they talk about. I think I approach my painting a little different way, although I have been very hyper focused on what my paintings say in the past. After doing it for 5 decades, I think I've kind of freed myself up a little bit. It's most comfortable for me to really start with an image that really grabs me. And yes, sometimes that's, how can it not be the beautiful paintings of the Renaissance? So I have done, as you can see, there's some series of those. But I think for me, the process really starts with the image. It's grabbing that image and then just battling with it on starting with a white canvas. I love technology. I think you can see a bit of that in my work, the graphic nature of it that I probably pull from being a former illustrator. My phone is filled. Matter of fact, I had to delete a whole bunch of storage last night with images from everywhere. I take pictures constantly of things that I see that vary from a beautiful painting in a museum to dead trees. I mean, it doesn't matter. And then that's really how I evolve. So I start with the image and then I just run with it. You know, I have appropriated a lot of images from the Baroque. I love that era. I love the paintings. So I did quite a few renditions from the master Caravaggio. I've even started doing more recently some pieces from some of the early American painters. I think the portrait you see of Washington on the wall was I think Gilbert Stuart was the original painter that did that. And that's, again, an example of some of the things I'm doing that are digital pieces. That was basically just a printed blur of his original painting. And then where you can see the definition in the face and the letters and the burnt run is really painted on in acrylic paint. So I'm working on a series right now where I'm just taking some master paintings and blurring them out and then bringing some of the pieces forward. So yeah, but I love history and I love the history of art. So I tend to keep going back to that, you know. So yeah.
That's why they call them the classics, I guess.
That's right.
There's lots to mine there. And yeah, fantastic.
Absolutely.
All righty. Well, let's end it there. I'm going to say I'll go back to the start of the fair here. This is the one. I'll stop sharing, but if all of you artists want to come back on, we can open it up to questions. And if anyone, you can put your questions into the chat or, let us know, we'll call them out. Okay, let's see here. Also, I just wanted to thank you guys. I know me and Chantal, it's kind of our early evening, but you Central and East Coasters, it's getting into your evening. So thank you for making time for this. It's great having you and stealing some of the midnight oil. And I'm sure all of the unfortunate few or many who are in Europe or Asia or Australia, they're not quite watching this yet, but I know they'll be checking back. So when they wake up, it'll be all loaded for them. So if you, oh, it looks like we've got a question. Tina asks, can we see more of your figurative works? You want to go back to them, or you have several works in your Saatchi art profile. Is that where all of your works are?
Yes, ma'am. Excuse me. Yeah, I think there's a couple of pieces in there that are figurative, absolutely. And some in progress that'll hopefully be popping up soon, and certainly for the art fair in Dallas in May.
Okay,
yes.
Great. Very cool.
And you can also check them out on Instagram too. There's more work there that may not be posted on Saatchi yet.
Yeah, it's always fun to see kind of behind the scenes how you guys are keeping creative and very busy during quite an unusual year. Oh man. Okay, well, let's see. I want to make sure I call out some things here. As always, everyone from the fair is available if anyone has any questions or needs help. And all the artists have put in their availability for taking one-on-one video chats. So if you have any questions you want to ask directly to the artist, or if you think about them later, feel free to visit the artist booth and you can click on their chat features or sign their guest book. And I want to thank each of you so much, David, Chantal, and Vicky. Thank you for
Nicole.
being part of the fair and sharing your beautiful works with us. They're all so fascinating, and now I need to go dive back in to see more of them.
It was very nice to listen about Chantal's and David's work. I like.
Same with you, Vicky. I actually love the creative dynamic that you have with your husband. It's really beautiful. And I love that you kind of had this like eureka moment that, you know, this actually is really part of your process in your work. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, thank you, everyone. And just for everyone's clarification, the Artist Room 1 will be closing tonight at midnight. Artist Room 2 will open tomorrow. And then Artist Room 1 will reopen over the weekend. So starting first thing Saturday, everyone can come back in and explore and enjoy. All right. Well, thank you guys. We'll see you all very soon.
Thank you,
everyone. Thanks, Nicole.
Thanks.
Happy painting.
Bye bye. Good morning to Australia.
Bye-bye.
Bye.